Metallica in 1991 achieved what no one achieved in metal music with the best-selling metal record ever, which is the Black Album, and quickly became an iconic Metallica record. But Metallica had questions about what would occur after the Black Album. But one thing was clear, no one wanted to make the Black Album again. But Metallica were exploring a whole other genre with new experiments and kinda new songwriting decisions, and that became the two pieces, Load and Reload. But today we are exploring the one that came out in 1996 and dig deep into what makes this album really special and really unique. So, welcome friends to our journey to review each and every one of the Metallica albums before the next one drops later this year or early next year. So let's start. We discussed in the Black Album review that Metallica began experimenting with different things, but only on Load did Metallica take it to the next level. They used lots of unusual instruments like talkbox in the house Jack built, and that song has the only solo in Metallica's history that had talkbox. They also have used fretless bass on Until It Sleeps, which is something they had never done before. We also have other unusual instruments on Load, like electric keyboard on Bleeding Me, cello in the outro of Hero of the Day. Also, Metallica offered us a lot of cool and creative techniques on guitar and on bass. They were super cool, super unique, and we never thought we will hear them in a Metallica song. The first one, of course, being slide guitar, which Kirk was allowed to do in two songs, Ain't My Bitch and The Outlaw Torn, and he did it in the solos. And of course, the one you probably all know is Slap. Slap was allowed on a freaking Metallica song, which is also on Load. This very funky, cool technique, and that song is Cure, particularly in the middle section.
Yeah, precious Cure.
And Metallica never did this before or even after Load, even though Rob is the master of this funky type of playing. Another really cool thing that appears on Load is strumming on Mama Said, but like real strumming, this campfire-y sort of style.
Mama, she has taught me well, told me when I was young, son, your life's an open book, don't close it for it's done.
Like a country song, basically. And for that to be the main riff on a Metallica song is totally insane and cool. And also Load was the first time where Metallica had a main riff in major key. They did use major key before on songs like Unjustice for All and Escape, but for Metallica to use it on the song's face, the main riff, that gotta be pretty cool. So Load is basically a legendary Metallica bucket that they dropped in it all the creativity and innovation and the techniques they were kinda deprived from doing on their thrashy albums. James has been on a roller coaster in terms of being a singer. He went from high-pitched screaming,
when the first screaming is right, well alright, yeah. When we start to rock, we never will stop again.
to basically growling as harsh as possible.
Deafening, painstaking, reckoning. This vertigo it does bring.
to actual singing.
What I felt, what I've known, never shine doing what I've shown.
But only on Load and Reload did James reach his peak as a vocalist. He developed a lot over the years to reach this level. When he wants to sound harsh, he does that perfectly.
So tear me open, pour me out. There's things inside that scream and shout, and the pain still hates me, so hold me. Caught on the wheels, I take the leash, I'm bleeding me. And it all crashes down, and you break your crown, and you put your finger, but there's no one around. Just want one thing, just to play the king, but the castle's crumbled and you're left with just a name.
When he wants to convey emotion and sing in a melodic sort of way, he does that perfectly.
Where do I take this pain of mine? I run, but it stays right by my side. The window burns to light the way back home. A light that warms no matter where they've gone. I'm digging my way. I'm digging my way to something. I'm digging my way to something better. Mama, she has taught me well. Told me when I was young, son, your life's an open book. Don't close it for it's done.
When he wants to sound like a badass with a hybrid between harshness and sweetness, he does that perfectly.
Oh, poor twisted me. Oh, poor twisted me. I feast on sympathy. I chew on suffer.
So let's keep in mind too that James has achieved all of these great things as a vocalist when still autotune and pitch correction technique was not introduced yet to ruin the pureness of music in general. And of course we hear a lot of yes on the record. When Bob Rock came into the production of Metallica records, the quality of sound really improved. And that started with the Black Album, which is always praised for its amazing sound in terms of guitar and bass tones, snare sound, overall balanced mastering. But what about Load and Reload? Everybody forgets about them. Even though they are too produced by Bob Rock, they too sound awesome. The guitar tone is really good. Snare sound is one of the best in Metallica's history, in my opinion. It's meaty, it's powerful. And the drums are such a strong feature on Load. Lars came up with a lot of cool drumming sections or parts. The bass tone is really crispy, but not only is the bass audible on Load, bass is quite a prominent feature on the song's composition. Bass is more or less all over Load. And the production of the album, in general, is really quite balanced. Everything is clear, nothing is buried in the mix. We can never say that about Ride the Lightning, Justice for All, and Death Magnetic. And of course, we cannot forget that autotune was not a part of the album's production. Certainly a really strong album lyrically, and even James at that time thought it was the strongest Metallica album in terms of lyrics.
It's just feelings inside, you know. I don't. We write what comes naturally. The newer album is even more personal. I think it's a little more universal. So, but yeah, there's a lot of aggression and energy and intensity in our shows. Yeah. People think it's soft. I think lyrically it's probably the heaviest ever. It moves me more than anything.
Load has a very wide net of lyrical topics, from really goofy and fun to really mature and emotional, and everything in between. So we have some kind of goofy lyrical topics. For example, Ain't My Bitch basically talks about an ex or something that isn't his bitch, and it's portrayed in a really fun way rather than being deep. 2x4 is another goofy one. It basically talks about a 2x4, a piece of wood, literally. But most of the album talks about pretty intimate stuff, you know? The house Jack built, for example, talks about addiction, and it's portrayed in a really intimate way. Until It Sleeps is another emotional one. The thing that James wants to sleep is basically pain and his depression. Mama Said is another really melancholic song, talks about James's mother, and it's beautifully written. The Outlaw Torn and Bleeding Me are also very strong lyrically. It can go from talking about a piece of wood and not to waste your hate, and into talking about depression, addiction, and really serious stuff. So why exactly do people hate Load? Because if you look at it from like a nerd perspective, we will find a lot of masterpieces, a lot of cool experimental stuff, and lots more. Well, I prefer to see that the music itself didn't play that big a role in the undying hatred of the record, but it was the internal shock from the transition in Metallica's image, like them going from long-haired headbangers to guys with short hair who wore suits. And of course, the shock from seeing these weird Kirk and Lars photos that I certainly can't recover from. And like the album cover that had weird stuff mixed. And by the way, I think the album cover looks pretty cool. It's disgusting in theory, but when you think about it, that wavy liquid sort of fits the songs, right? So that's why these fans love to say that Metallica sold out because of their image. And also the songs were quite different than before. And if you think about it, isn't selling out in music is to do something that would appeal to the mass audience without taking any risks? And Metallica did the exact opposite thing of selling out on Load and Reload, because they were getting out of their comfort zone, challenging themselves. How is that selling out? And how is writing long 8 to 9 minute masterpieces like Bleeding Me and The Outlaw Torn radio friendly? That's kind of weird, to be honest. So yeah, it's not that Metallica sold out, it's just that you guys are the ones who cannot appreciate diversity and innovation. Load is a very versatile and a very diverse album. It has songs with different styles, durations, speeds, and even genres sometimes. We have speedy hard rock tracks like Ain't My Bitch and Wasting My Hate. We have some really catchy and kind of bluesy tracks like Ronnie. We even have country music on Load, which is Mama Said. And also, Load has the highest number of ballads in a single Metallica record, which is 4, Until It Sleeps, Hero of the Day, Bleeding Me, and Mama Said. So Load is kind of an awesome record in terms of ballady, melodic type of songs. We also have a lot of variety in the duration of the songs. Some songs are as long as 9 minutes, The Outlaw Torn, and some songs are as short as 3 minutes, Wasting My Hate. Some songs are pretty average in terms of Metallica durations, like The House Jack Built. The album also varies in speed a lot. For example, Ain't My Bitch is a pretty fast track, it's 160 BPM, while The Outlaw Torn is 117 BPM. And also load varies a lot in terms of the genres in the album. Sometimes it's heavy metal, which is a rarity. Most of the time it's hard rock music. Sometimes country and blues elements appear. And not only is load creative and musically efficient, but it has a lot of variety and diversity in its 14 songs. And some people say that it should have been one album with cutting a lot of songs, but for me that's not worth it. If we would have one album, we would have to give up a lot of great songs to make a single album possible. Fuel and In My Bitch, we have to give up one. Until It Sleeps and The Unforgiven 2, we have to give up one. Mama Said and Low Man's Lyric, we have to give up one. Fixer and The Outlaw Torn, we have to give up one. So for me, 2 albums are much better because we do have a lot of awesome material in Load and Reload that simply would not make the cut if it were only a single record. Load has a lot of really cool solos. It's really one of its strongest features. The styles of solos on Load are very different from every other album, even the other twin, Reload. Some of the solos use this very cool slide guitar technique we talked about on Ain't My Bitch and The Outlaw Torn. The guitar feels like it's wailing, you know what I mean? And sometimes we have these very short, straight to the point solos that are quite catchy and a great fit for the songs. And of course, most of the time we have these normal hard rocky stuff we hear on Load and Reload. And also we have a lot of really melodic and sweet solos that sound really beautiful. And it's also the only Metallica album to have 3 James solos in a single album. And each is unique in its own way. The first one, The House Jack Built, Talk Box. It sounds really cool and weird, but it also sounds like a guy is throwing up. The second one is on Thorn Within, and that one makes it so unique. Really, really short, but sweet and melodic and, rich. And the last one is on The Outlaw Torn. It's more like a riff that has modified bits and very cool stuff added to it. And that also is accompanied by this very cool escalation vibe. It's very, very, very cool. And I saved one of my favorite Kirk solos for the last, which is Bleeding Me. It has a lot of wah, but it's awesome and really, really cool and conveys a lot of emotion and just really catchy and really cool. And Load was the only Metallica album at the time to feature songs with no lead parts at all, and these were Wasting My Hate and Mama Said. Load, despite being in my opinion a masterpiece by all the means in the world, Metallica seems to ignore it. We never have any songs played from that album live anymore, which is super annoying and also adding to the equation that some fans can't appreciate the incredible musicianship on this album. It seems that Load is not going to be touched by the band for a long time. And don't forget to tell me in the comments what is your favorite Load song. And don't forget to follow me on Telegram, where you can contact me anytime and be a part of polls, discussions about Metallica and about the channel. And also follow me on Facebook and on Instagram. All links in the description.